Namaste and good morning. So we are going to start the first sessions of the second day. I regret that I could not attend yesterday's sessions, which I would have loved it. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for trusting me and giving me this opportunity to chair the sessions. And I would also like to thank as well as congratulate the organizer, Kathmandu University, for organizing such an important and very relevant and very much needed conference. As announced earlier, the theme of this session, equal distributions of fiscal and state resource, is very relevant for Nepal, since all our provinces and local levels are not equally developed, not financially equal, and diverse in natural resources. Nepal is not only diverse geographically, but also ethnically, lingually, and then culturally too. And majority of them do not have access to the state resources and are not equally benefiting from the present development. Definitely, physical management is a challenge to address these problems of regional disparities, ethnic discriminations, and to bring the excluded and marginalized group into the mainstream development. Our new constitution has therefore declared Nepal as a socialism-oriented state, indicating socialism as the economic vision having three tiers of federalism for economic governance. The management of public finance and the economic responsibility of different levels of the governments are based on the principle of fiscal federalism. This session, indeed, is very much needed sessions to engage us, to discuss and debate, and find some directions and ways forward. I feel very much honored and privileged to have eminent scholars as speakers and commentators. Distinguished guests and participants, I would like to welcome you all to these sessions. And I'm honored to have Professor Achyut Wagle, Professor of Economics, Kathmandu University School of Management, and Professor Tasneem Kausar, Professor of Law and Jurisprudence, Principal, Pakistan College of Law, Lahore, Pakistan, will be the speaker, and Honorable Dr. Khimlal Devkota, Member of National Assembly of Nepal, and Professor Philip Koh, Adjunct Professor, University of Malaya, Malaysia, will be the commentator. Then we'll definitely have time for the open floor for any queries and comments. And I also have seen some papers being floated around for noting down the queries and the comments. We have about 1.5 hours, and if everyone stick to the given time, we will definitely have enough time, not only for the speakers and commentator, but also, for the representative from the floor. Definitely we will not be able to cover, but I think we'll have many of us who will be able to do that. So not taking much time, I would like to start with the first speaker of this sessions, and I would like to request Professor Achyut Wagle ji, to take his time, and he has also 15 minutes, and I definitely would like to request to honor the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. All the distinguished luminaries here. Good morning and namaste. Thank you for this opportunity to present a paper on fiscal federalism of Nepal, a perspective on its practice. It is perhaps the high time we have completed the 2 cycles of elections of all 3 tiers of legislatures after promulgation of Federal Constitution of Nepal, and in some ways we have tried to put in practice all the 4 pillars of federalism: the constitutional federalism, administrative federalism, fiscal federalism, and political federalism. If the reason, the attrait of federalism is to have economic prosperity of the country and the well-being of the people, I think the fiscal federalism is at the center, and all other 3 pillars of federalism need to support that fiscal federalism operation if we are to deliver through the economic system and economic channels. Some of the experts in constitutional federalism may disagree with that, but as an economist, I think everything in federalism is about economics. It may be inclusion, it may be independence of the government, it may be identity, you may say anything, but to fulfill those aspirations of 3 I's, inclusion, independence, and identity, the fiscal strength is inevitable. When it comes to the operationalization, we have got the National Natural Resource and Fiscal Commission, NNRFC. It operates through 5 channels: the revenue sharing, fiscal equalization grants, conditional grants, internal loans, and royalties distribution of from the natural resources. As regards to constitutional and legal framework for fiscal federalism, it may have been repeated many times. We have got the 4 types of grants. We have said the fiscal equalization grant, conditional grants, complementary grants, and special grants. Interestingly, the grants scheme has been pretty skewed. If we look through the practice of last 5 years, it has not been equally distributed in the sense that some grants, like the fiscal equalization grants, have dominated like 55 to 60%, and then the conditional grants is about 35%, and the rest 10%, depending on the provinces we have distributed this. And the issues, other issues like the internal grant has been extremely contentious. Some of the federal countries like Germany, I was meeting a colleague, they have come a full cycle on the funding mechanisms. Now they have come into the practice of balanced budget system after a long exercise of allowing the subnational units to borrow. But we need to look into those. I have talked about the constitutional provisions. The key act is the Intergovernmental Fiscal Arrangement Act 2017, and I'll have a little bit of discussion on that. So next is the weightage given by the Fiscal Arrangement Act. Actually, the formula developed by the NNRFC is dependent on the population and demographic details with 60% weightage. Why I am presenting this table is this is very unfair if we talk in terms of equality, because the less number of population in those provinces where there is the least development, like Karnali. So if you are putting the 60% weightage on this territory area, I think this is the weightage for the fiscal equalization grant. It is revenue sharing. And then on revenue sharing, we have got the 70% is for the central government, 15% for the province, and the 15% of the local level. The weightage is this. how it is calculated. The second is the equalization grant. I have already mentioned about the equalization grant, but the formula is with the Human Development Index with the 10%. And again, necessity of expenditure, which is very subjective category, with the 70% weightage. This is actually what kind of federalism, fiscal federalism we are practicing is very interesting. If you look at what the Fiscal Commission recommends over the years, and then how much budget is allocated and how much it is dispersed, is very interesting. It is in the same scale. That means the subnational units have not been able to expand their budgetary capacity on their own and not able to think in terms of generating extra resources to mobilize. So in that sense, we probably cannot expect the economic expansion and economic efficiency. What we are actually practicing is the subnational government will wait for how much grant is coming from the center. So our fiscal federalism model has essentially been the grant and expenditure model, though no other variables in the fiscal federalism have been exercised. So that is the data source. So it is exactly what has been recommended by NRSP has been dispersed. So in the budgetary system, the other the economic sources have hardly been utilized. So when it comes to intergovernmental fiscal transfer over the years, it is 1 year old data, but it is enough to show the sort of trend to how much we have distributed to the provincial level, the local level over the years. It is just to give a sense that actually the revenue sharing and the revenue generation part has been very little, and even the local levels are not been able to get anything through the royalty distribution. Anything means very little if you look at the figures here. So our ability to mobilize the natural resources by the subnational units, particularly the local governments, has been very limited. Internal loans, which has been a very, very contentious issue. Actually, despite federalism, the very conservative mindset of not allowing the subnational unit to borrow independently is very, very prevalent in all the existing laws, emerging laws, and to some extent even in the constitutional provisions. Yes, we have got the mixed experiences like the over-indebted municipalities of Brazil, and now the new policy in Germany has forced to produce a balanced budget even by the municipalities. We have got the mixed experience on internal loans. But if we look at the ability of subnational governments to expand, to provide the public services for their constituency, and if they depend only on the revenue sharing mechanism and then the equalization grant, we cannot expect any additional amount of infrastructure and improved scale of the public services. That is the sort of confined area. And in one count, if we compare the section 14 of this Fiscal Arrangement Act after federalism, and if you contrast with the same number of section 14 of the Local Self-Governance Act under the unitary system that was enacted in 1999, at that time the municipalities were allowed to borrow pledging their immobile property. After federalism, that provision we sort of liquidated. We abolished that provision. So it is time. I would not like to conclude this is right or wrong, but if we think even the subnational units should not be allowed to pitch for their proposed project for investment, if they are not allowed to issue the treasury bonds, if they are not equipped to mobilize the additional financial resources, our expectation of enhancing economic prosperity through federalism is not going to be fulfilled. That is clear. That is what I wanted to. I don't want to repeat the arrangements. Very recently, government of Nepal has established a new office called the Public Debt Management Office and enacted a new law, that is Public Debt Management Act. That also has got a very conservative approach of not facilitating, controlling approaches there. So what actually have happened is, in the past, few of the provinces tried to present a deficit budget, hoping to raise some loans. So this is the example. In Madhya Pradesh has tried to exercise to present about ₹1 billion deficit budget over 4-5 fiscal years. Gandaki province has tried, Lumbini has tried once, and Karnali has tried. But very interestingly, none of them have been able to raise a single penny under this scheme. Sharing of royalty, I don't go into this, but there is a mechanism. We know there are 5 categories of natural resource mobilization has been proposed: mountaineering, electricity, forest, mines and minerals, water and other natural resources. There is a fixed provision of distribution between the federal and the concerned state and the local level. It is 50, 25, 25. Because since it is in operation, but the amount is not significant. Probably we need to, when you go for a new round of comprehensive review, we need to look into this. I think I have got only few minutes, so I don't want to go into details of things, but let me talk about a few of the bottlenecks what we faced. When it comes to the public financial management of Nepal, so we suffer from 2 very paradoxical paradigms. One, we have got the very limited absorption capacity of the resources. We are not able to spend our capital expenditure as per the allocation. Second, we are constantly complaining about not having the resources. That is very paradoxical. That's one I would like to emphasize. Second, we have the full 5-year tenure of the subnational units, elected executives, the political representatives, but we fail to train them even to prepare a convincingly functional budget in selecting the projects and efficiently allocating the funds for those projects. The realization is that there is not a technical capability to formulate the budget. So that we have grossly ignored. Another very contentious issue has been on the public procurement. It has been problematic since we are trying to manage the local level public procurement through our this Public Procurement Act. We have tried to amend about 10 times. We are not giving that leverage to formulate the Public Procurement Act by the provinces and the local levels. The same applies to the financial transparency. If you expect our Commission for Investigation of Abuse Authority to go into the local level where there has been irregularities and control corruption, that is probably not going to happen. So the outcome has been very, very, very problematic. I have got still the sense of federalism is not realized in terms of the fiscal gap. I had a study. I had a study on the basis of data from 2006 to 2015. That data shows the Bagmati province alone collects the 60% of revenue and spend about 63% of it. So rest has to be shared by and it has not fundamentally changed ever since. Even today, if you look at the revenue sharing, the Bagmati province has got about 40% of the GDP of the nation. And that skewness in the distribution still remains there. So when we go for the review of the structural aspect of it, we probably need to go. When I'm talking about the absorption capacity, we have got about 80 billion rupees that is just being idle in the consolidated funds in the subnational level. So what we are going to do with the consolidated fund, we probably need to think of investing and generating some kind of outcome from that idle. I'm sorry, we are not being able to display this for some technical reasons. And finally, before do I have 5 more? How many minutes? Okay. So I only like to say 3 things finally. Okay. So one is we don't have any other alternative to capacity building on the public financial management at the local level, local governments level. That we have completely ignored. We may have the civil servants of the elected representative. That is one. Second, I think we are creating more than required federal experts after we had the federalism. That has been the disease of Nepal. Everybody is a federalism expert now. I have started to say the federalism quacks. Everybody is ready to operate from different angle without knowing whether somebody has got the actual knowledge what is going on, particularly in the fiscal federalism. It includes the development partners, how they are engaging. It includes probably the academic institution, and it includes the newly mushroomed kind of federalism experts. So this is the slide I particularly wanted to see. If you see from the 2006 to 16, on the basis of the district that have fallen into different provinces, the green one in terms of the revenue is the province 3, Bagmati province, and then the province 2 with the Birganj customs office, and again Bagmati province is spending all the. And now it is the present data. Look at the skewness, the continued skewness is reflected in terms of the sharing of the GDP. If we don't do anything, and if you consider that federalism is going to be an equitable polity for all, it is not going to happen. I think I'll stop there. My paper is there. I'd like to apologize for the paper. I have not been able to reread it, and I myself have found a lot of typos. Probably when it goes to printing, probably we'll have time to that. Thank you for your patience. These are the issues that need the hair-splitting, slow, nuanced discussion, but rushing against time is always a mess. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Achyut Wagle. I think it was, I wish we have more time to listen to it, and the points that you have emphasized are really very, very important, and the time is always a constraint. So I don't want to talk anything about what has been presented at the moment, but I would like to now request our second presenter, Professor Tasneem Kausar. I think she will be speaking on equalization payments and fiscal fairness in federal system of Pakistan. So this is the example of an experience of Pakistan.
With the permission of the chair, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and I guess we can resume from yesterday. I cannot tell you how difficult it is to present a long paper in 15 minutes. I'll try to do my best. Okay, this is a paper on equalization payments and fiscal fiscal fairness in the federal system of Pakistan, and the main context of the paper is that most of the time fiscal federalism is seen with the economic lens. However, the point goes on that it's ultimately the political decision, and it has political overtones, and it has political outcomes. So basically the paper has like data in it, but paper is mainly a political commentary upon the trajectory of fiscal federalism in Pakistan. It looks upon the historical evolution of it, and it goes through certain themes that are recurring in the development of fiscal federalism in Pakistan. So now federalism in that context, particularly the decentralization part of it, has been taken into two contexts, and the paper goes around talking about the legislative decentralization and then the fiscal decentralization. Of course, provincial autonomy is not possible if provinces are just transferred the responsibilities and are not provided with the resources to perform those responsibilities. Now, Pakistan is a federal state. It is comprised of 4 provinces. It has one federal territory, capital territory, and it has one federally administrated province, which is not the full province. If we can go to, I'm not going into the historical context otherwise, but this is one slide which shows, because the paper is divided into 2 sections. One is prior to 1973, and the other one is post 1973. So prior to 1973, Pakistan came into being 1947, but the paper goes into talking about Government of India Act 1935 for 2 particular reasons. One has been because that was adopted as an interim constitution of Pakistan and continued to work till 1956 when Pakistan made its first constitution. And secondly, also because under Government of India Act, Namier Award was of 1936 was made, and Namier Award was a predecessor of that system where technocratic bodies were appointed to make awards. Throughout the development of fiscal federalism, you will find 3 things happening. One is where there is a confusion as to composition for the distribution, composition of the body for the distribution formula, right, to what that body would be. Historically, we had been doing it through technocratic arrangement where specialized economists and such panels were appointed, and there were less and less representation of political representatives in that. So much so that in 1960, we have like 3 constitutions. We had 1956 constitution, then 1962's constitution. Now the currently working one is 1973's constitution. In 1962's constitution, when we constituted that distributive panel, we altogether eliminated the political representation from that, and it was like entirely a technocratic panel for that matter. Provincial representation was taken out in 1962's constitution, right? So what would be the composition of that body? That had been one of the main question, and then of course the distribution itself, both at vertical and horizontal tiers. What would be the division between the center and the provinces had been a super sore point for the state of Pakistan, and even now when I'm talking to you, there is a 10th National Finance Commission that is in order, and it's like doing its deliberations. And the main question once again had been like, what will be the vertical distribution between the center and the state? This is how it goes. Another important point here is the horizontal equalization formula, and Namier Award was a success in that the British government at that time was able to let go of 50% of the collected revenue to the provinces, and then horizontal distribution of course shows like how would it be divided between the federating units. And there were 3 specific indicators used: population, revenue, capacity, and expenditure need. And upon that, provinces, even though provinces were not happy, but that's the lot of federalism. There will always be some units, some places that will be unhappy. Another important point from this slide is the regression that we made in National Finance Commission, and there was a change in the divisible pool, the one that looked like 50-50, it turned into 37.5 and 62.5, where the federal government took over more share. And again, the Resman program was again a technocratic program. It went from 1952 till 1973. Can I have the next slide, please? Right. So this is like a very, nothing intricate about it. It's very, very comprehensible. The main thing to see over here is that all these awards, these financial awards, they were inconclusive. By saying inconclusive, it means to say that there was no consensus between the parties, but resources still had to be distributed. So inconclusive awards were constitutionally in order, and even still the 1973's constitution, it gives presidential the power that if the parties haven't gotten to the consensus, the president can continue the previous award. So you can see that two indicators, after partition, the population indicator was entirely taken out, and that was more of a political layout than the financial in that context, because of the population variation between East and West Pakistan. The entire West Pakistan was huddled into one unit, and between East and West Pakistan, some kind of population parity was tried to be achieved mainly for the purpose of having it not having that edge upon population basis, and to just showing that if the population as an indicator is taken out, it will be of no economic consequence. It was not, maybe not of that many economic consequences, but it had drastic political consequences. Can I have the next one? Right. We can move forward from here. Right. So 1970, then the next part of the paper is 1973's constitution, and 1973's constitution is a lot of improvement upon its predecessors in 1956 and 1962's constitution. 1973's constitution had the layout of decentralization, where the powers were being devolved upon the provinces. And let me clear it to the House that in Pakistan it is federal government and its provincial government. Our local governments are not as active, and we haven't had like a very flourishing record in that. And local governments, they do not do any budgetary tasks, they do not do any policy making tasks, they are mainly the delivery, public delivery service in that context. So all the things that are being done on the policy and distribution level, they are being done by the provincial governments. Right, so the National Finance Commission, that is the body even at the moment that is overseeing the distribution of resources in Pakistan. It is under Article 160 of the Constitution. For the first time, National Finance Commission is now, the constitution of that commission is that it has the representation from all provinces. It is the finance minister, the central finance minister, and the finance ministers from all provinces. And then each province can nominate a technocrat to the panel, and central government will also nominate their own technocrat, right? So they can have economists and technocrats, and they are allowed up to 2, but if they are going to have 2, then there has to be like the other parties will also be allowed 2. It's like so that there won't be any imbalance in the commission. Another very interesting thing about the commission had been the principle of unanimity, right? So the commission, there is no majority vote in the commission. It is rather all decisions supposed to be taken through the unanimity vote. Now, there had been a lot of criticism upon that also, but again, if that would have been a majority vote, it would give the impression that as if majority has decided something against the minority. So when the consensus is not achieved, when the unanimous vote is not reached at, then the distribution scheme of the previous award, it is carried through. Right, so even at this time, because we haven't had consensus since many years now, so the 2010's 7th National Finance Award is the scheme that we are continuing through. And there are some variations that are always possible through grants into those schemes, but the larger distributive transfers are the same. And of course, it has this clause D, the another problematic provision over here, which gives president the authority to add additional taxes to the divisible pool. Now, the divisible pool for the distribution has been constitutionally laid out. Article 160 lays out the taxes and all duties and all the revenues that are collected that will be constituting divisible pool. However, there is a provision that president can change that, which means to say that president can either add or, all right. Yeah. So president can either can add, and that had been always the part of the negotiations that National Finance Commission does. Because in the first place, the major question, as I said, 3 questions. So one question is also what is going to be the divisible pool for the next award. So in that, the presidential intervention, it means a lot. Can we just like move? Okay. Now this is the chart that shows the all fiscal awards that had been made under the National Finance Commission since 1974, and just a very simple chart it is, and very quickly we can see 2 things, and they're like some awards are conclusive, and the criteria for all awards for the horizontal distribution had been population. Now that's very interesting because we had like a very rough time by not adding population, so much so that East Pakistan ceded from the Pakistan itself, and there had been one serious concern that their population wasn't given the due share of representation as in the indicating formula for the resource distribution. However, after 1974, the tax performance and GDP and all that had been taken out from the indicating formula, and population was only retained. And again, that was the majoritarian politics that was at play, because one of the province had like a serious population edge over the remaining provinces. And another point here is that we can see that all the political governments, 1974, then 1990, and then 1996, all the political governments, they have been reaching conclusive awards, whereas the military regimes in Pakistan, they hadn't been very successful in garnering any kind of consensus on the fiscal resources and their distribution. Right, okay, this is the distributive framework we had. Like now we started in the 1947 with the 50-50, where provinces were getting 50 and the center was getting 50. 1974 onwards, previous to that, the distribution scheme was 37.5 to 62.5, and later than that, we changed with the federation getting 20 to 80. Now that was the time when decentralization of federalism, was starting to look good. However, between 1974 to 1990, we had military regimes where that formula was in the regression. And again, you can see in 1996, the scheme went back to 62.5 to 37.5, and later than that, in the Musharraf government, it went even worse, where the center was getting, you can see like the center was getting 62 here, and center was getting even more in the subsequent awards. Can we just like rush to the next one? Right, that was the provincial shares, and you can see that the Punjab being the most populous province, and the distribution being made singularly on the population indicator, was getting the major chunk of the resources, whereas remaining provinces, they were not getting as much, and because we had a unifactored formula. And we go on to the next one. Right. The 7th NFC award is important in a context because we had 18th constitutional amendment at the same time. Now, 1973's constitution was a very federalist constitution, but it didn't deliver as much because there were promises, but there were not actual apparatus there to deliver. But 18th amendment, in that context, it removed the concurrent list. Now there is only one federal legislative list, and remaining all the residuary legislative powers, they have been devolved upon the provinces. Now with that devolution, of course, the devolution of resources will also be needed for the provinces to deliver in like that. Right. The most important point here is the insertion of clause 3A into the Article 160. Now Article 3A, okay, Article 3A is super important because it lays out that whatever the share provinces have gotten in an award, it will not be getting any lesser than that in the next award. So now for this had been a great jump in assuring the provinces the minimum share that they will get in the resource allocation. Now, whatever they will be getting, they will not get any lesser than that, and now the shares can only be enhanced. Now, but the major issue at the moment is the central government now is trying to curtail the divisible pool, because provinces' share can only be, this Article 163A, it applies to the horizontal distribution. It doesn't apply to the vertical distribution, and vertical distribution presupposes a divisible pool. So now what the central government is doing is that it is trying to curtail that divisible pool, and at the moment there is a debate about central government pressing on the provinces that 7% of the resources should be relieved from the divisible pool and should be assigned back to the central government. So upshot of that is that the paper is still a working paper. There's a discussion and analysis parts of it. The last part and the discussion and analysis part is basically political commentary upon the entire career of fiscal federalism in Pakistan, and that is still under works. I'm writing it, and hopefully if it's published, you'll get to read it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would also like to thank the Asia Foundation, the Australian National Government, and Kathmandu Law School. And they have been great hosts, and you have been lovely audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Tasneem. I think all the examples and experience that you have shared, there is a lot for all of us definitely to learn and to experience, and there are wonderful initiatives, and the thing that I could just say is, there is a lot of effort to see that the equalizations of payment and fiscal fairness in Pakistan is, is always in the process of improving and then becoming better, so that everybody could have access to it. I think, Professor Wagle, you were very wise to go down and to look at the presentation, but I wish, there is something, for us also to see, because it's quite difficult to look back and to just listen to it. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, we will have the two very esteemed commentator, and I would just say that, it is just 10 minutes, and he has whispered that he is very used to sticking to the time. So I would like to invite Honorable Dr. Khimlal Devkota ji, who is the member of National Assembly of Nepal, for the comment on both the papers that has been presented now.
Dear Session Chair, Ms. Stella Tamang, paper presenters Professor Wagle and Professor Tasneem, colleagues from the panel, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like many thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. I would like to congratulate both the presenters for their excellent presentations. The theme of these sessions is equitable distributions of fiscal resources. I think it is the synonym of the fiscal transfer system. Basically, I will be focusing more on this fiscal transfers theme. Honestly speaking, in the peripheral license period, I worked for about 10 years in this theme also. So I have a lot of things to speak, but we discuss with my colleagues, commenters. So I will be confining more on the Nepal sides, and he will be commenting more on this next paper in the Pakistani paper. That because of the depending on the time as well. So I will be speaking, commenting, if time allows. But some issues, I will highlight some issues, and I will come in some way forward. So talking to global perspective in the fiscal transfer system, the intergovernmental fiscal transfers are the main source of revenue in most of the countries. The main source of revenue of the subnational government. The subnational government means, in our case, we have the province government and we have the local government as well. The talking to some global data, as per the OECD report, of federal countries, the share of fiscal transfers in the total revenue, the share of fiscal transfers in the total revenue in the federal countries is 43%, and in the unitary system it is 53%. If you come to Nepal, it is about 70%. In some countries, the provision of fiscal transfers is included in the constitutions. However, in the most of the countries, it is in the legal documents. This is the important thing. If we talk about the theme of fiscal federalism in Nepal, the fiscal federalism theme in Nepal, the expenditure, just Dr. Wagle, he talked about, he presented about the fiscal federalism. If you talk about the fiscal federalism in Nepal, the expenditure assignment in terms of fiscal federalism, it is called the first pillar. The expenditure assignment, it is also called the functional responsibility. The expenditure assignment is highly devolved to the subnational government. This is the first one. This is the first pillar. And the second pillar of the fiscal federalism, which is called the revenue rights. The revenue power is highly centralized. The function is decentralized, constitutionally decentralized functions. The revenue is highly centralized. So there is a huge gap, fiscal gap. So to reduce this fiscal gap, there is a provision in the constitutions of the mechanism of the fiscal transfer system within the constitution, in our constitutions. The Article 60 and the Article 250 and the 251 is the provision of the fiscal transfer system and the equitable distributions of the state resources. What the constitution says, for example, subsection 2 of the Article 60 of the constitution states that the government of Nepal shall make necessary arrangements for the equitable distributions of the revenue generated by it from its resources between the federal, province, and local level. This is the key provisions of the constitutions, that the state power should be divided, should be distributed equitable to the three tiers of government, that is the federal and province and the local level. This is the key provision of the constitutions. Similarly, subsection 3 of the article states that the number of fiscal transfers, the size of the pool of the fiscal transfer should be decided by national natural resources and fiscal commissions. This is the another important theme of the constitutions. Moreover, the subsection 4 of the article, what the constitution says, the fiscal equalization grant should be based on the expenditure need of the subnational government and revenue capacity of the subnational government. These are the key provision of the constitutions. Now let's discuss about what are the positive aspect of this fiscal transfer system in Nepal. Number one, it is constitutionally mandated. Number first. And the second, we have the independent fiscal commissions. Working in the fiscal federalism theme, working in the fiscal transfer theme, number two. And the second, for resolving the issues in the fiscal transfer system, we have another mechanism, which is intergovernmental fiscal council, which is chaired by the finance minister, and the members are all from the provincial government. And the council also includes representative from the local government as well. The necessary laws have been also drafted. The key laws of this fiscal transfers, the state resource division of the key laws, for example, as Dr. Wagle he also talked about the national natural resources of the fiscal commission law. It is already established, and the intergovernmental fiscal arrangement act. It is already drafted. The key laws, and about the another about one third of the federal budget is going to the subnational government. That is one third of the fiscal transfers. For example, in the current fiscal year, the total budget size is 1751 billion, and out of this 1751 billion, 574 billion is distributed to the subnational government. We have been also following the formula system in the fiscal transfer system, in the equalization grant and the revenue sharing and the natural resource distributions. We have been following formula system, which is developed and worked by the fiscal commissions. These are the key achievements in the fiscal transfer system. And what are the issues? So far, the issues in the fiscal transfer system are concerned. Number one, the size or the determinations of the vertical pool of the grant is ad hoc. This is the ad hoc. The size of the vertical pool is ad hoc, number one. The second, the allocations of the conditional grant is haphazard. Second issues. And third, there are dozens of projects and values even less than 100,000. There are many program and projects allocated for the subnational government, even less than 100,000 from this federal government. This is the third key issues. And the fourth issue is the fiscal commission's role has been reduced by the laws. The constitution has given the wider role for the fiscal commissions. However, the role of the fiscal commission has been reduced by the laws. This is the four issues. And the ratio of the fiscal equalization grant has been declining with comparing to the GDP and the government budget size. This is another issues. And the questions have also been raised about the equitable distributions of the equalization grant. Just also talk about the Dr. Wagle. The grants have not been linked with the service delivery. In the pre-federalization period, we have been following performance-based grant system, incentive-based grant system, but we have not been able properly link with this system. It is linked in the nominal grant system. And another issue is that the principle, the finance follows the functions principle has not been also adopted, followed properly. This is another issue. The revenue capacity and potentiality of the subnational governments have not yet been determined. This is another issue. The dependency ratio of the subnational government is increasing. This is another issue. And there is, however, these are the key issues in the fiscal transfer system. However, there is another significant issues in the overall distributions of the state fiscal resources, which is the most of the fiscal resources go to the key political party leaders and the ministers and the powerful influential parliamentary members. This is the key issues in the state fiscal resources. These are the key issues. And the final key issue is that the rights of the subnational government, whether this is the province and local government, the federal government is bypassing the rights of the local subnational government by transferring, distributing haphazard program projects. These are the key issues. And finally, so far the way forward, I will conclude in the 1 minute. I have the remaining 1 minute. What is the first? Finance follows the functions. This is the key principle. Finance follows the functions, institution follows the functions, functionary follows the functions. This principle has not been followed properly, so this principle should be followed. Number one recommendations. The second, the rights to determine the vertical and horizontal pools should be given to the fiscal commissions. This is my second recommendations. The distributions of grants should be
all distribution of grants should be given to the fiscal commissions. As you know, currently the fiscal commissions works only few grants, only equalization grant, revenue sharing, and natural resource. Another grants is working by another institutions. For example, National Fiscal Commissions is working on a 2 grant system, and conditional grant, the Fiscal Commission is not working. So all set of grants should be allocation of these all grants should be given to the fiscal commissions. It is the constitutional role, but the government is ignoring the fiscal commission's role, is declining, bypassing the fiscal commissions. And another recommendations, and we also need to revisit this fiscal equalization grant, I also already mentioned, and conditional grant allocation should be linked. The conditional grant should be linked with the sectoral objectives and goals. Whether this is the SDG goal or whatever, it should be linked with the sectoral goals and objectives in the. And as for the GDP side, the fiscal equalization grant should also be increased on the recommendations. And we should also follow performance-based grant system. You know, in the equalization grant, we should follow this performance grant system. Currently, we have been linking only 4% of the out of total fiscal equalization grant. It should be also be linked. And final, my recommendations is that we should follow the recommendations of the Federalism Monitoring Parliamentary Special Committee of the National Committee. And this committee has recommended 100 recommendations. Out of 100 recommendations, there are about 40 recommendations in the related to fiscal federalism. And about 20 recommendations only related to the fiscal transfer system. So these should be followed. The Prime Minister, he also came in the Parliament and he also responded. These reports will be strictly followed. So this report and the recommendations of this report should be followed. So these are my recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Khimlal Devkota ji, being very much on time and very much precise. Now, Professor Philip Cole, the adjunct professor of University of Malaya, Malaysia. I think he's already there, very much ready to give his comment and his opinion. So, sir, please.
Namaskar, everybody. It's a great honor to be here this morning in a gathering of such learned writers of this session and the sessions that preceded it, where I listened intently and learned so much from you all. I'm actually a private lawyer, but happen to be an adjunct academic in my university. I actually teach law and literature, but my passion remains on public law and contract law. Today, as I listen into the sessions, and as I navigate Nepal, I picked up the newspaper Kathmandu Post on November 22nd, and there is a marvelous article by C.K. Lal talking about mud ash. Federalism has little to do with better governance and faster development. As I respond to the key speaker this morning, I noticed that mud ash contribute 13.3%, all right, to the government, if I read it correctly. And yet, C.K. Lal wrote a poignant piece. And what sent me and my attention was, it says here, mud ash sends more people to work in the sweltering heat of West Asia and Malaysia than any other province, but it has no publicly funded center for excellence. As I read these words, and I'm coming from Malaysia, I met many noble Nepalis working there in my country. I realize I'm humbled this session to listen into the discourse made about fiscal equalization and distribution. Although my remit was supposed to comment on Professor Tasneem, I realized that I'm really not up to going into the granular details that she has navigated. But let me share some thoughts as I try to cobble up some ideas this morning. The lawyers are catching up with so much of terminology. The old terminology of unilateral state and federalism, of course, is the main arc of our discourse, has now been replace, I understand, as I look at some new books in this area of constitutional law and national pluralism. All right? We know that the word used so often throughout this morning, the subnational, or a bigger word used by academics in the legal academia, plurinational. All right? The whole subject of subnational territories negotiating and navigating their contestation for more allocation and more equitable distribution. In the wake of post-colonial exit from our nations, whether Nepal in its beautiful northern Asia landlocked under the foothills of Himalaya, or Malaysia as a peninsula with Straits of Malacca and the South China Sea, and later amalgamating Borneo states of Sabah and Sarawak into Malaysia, the two nations which worked under the shadow of the British Empire worked out their constitution. And one of the greatest challenges, as I read a bit of the history, is to navigate the issue of fiscal distribution and sharing. But law does not remain static. History marches on. Political upheavals in development push and pull our development. And even though the commissions, at least for Malaysia, I know for you all, you have 7 constitution version and constituent assembly. Ours was framed by Reed Commission with Ivo Jennings writing out, and in this part of fiscal decentralization and grants, there was much dilemmas and contestation even within their writings. As I tried to touch a bit on our history, Malaysia, I realized that the framers realized that although at that time rubber and tin was the main contributor, and therefore the center has more revenue, although they are rich states in the past, after 60 over years of independence, there are some states which have burgeoned in their revenue. For example, Borneo states, especially Sabah now, has rich oil deposits. And there is a huge legal suit being filed, of which the courts will be drawn in, whether or not laws pertaining to the continental shelf belongs to the federal list or the state list. And because of that, the capitation grant should all be revised, because the old British model of capitation grant links only to the demographic of population or roads, which is minuscule, of course. In Peninsular Malaysia, Penang, a very thriving industrial state, contributes 10 billion ringgit, about 2.5 billion US dollars, to the federal coffers, and they get a couple of 100 million grant. Their grant is lesser than some ministry that does very little developmental work. This is the dilemma of post-colonial states. And as I listen into the Pakistan discourse, I realized Professor Tasneem, in her granular presentation, also showed that the elite capture of post-colonial construct through political partisanship, through parties, very often overcome our lawyers' desire of looking at the normative principles which we think and prize so high. In Malaysia, for example, my example would be, for almost 50 over years, the hegemonic control of one single party and a very weak coalition partners gave rise to a very strong central government, of which allocations and grants are given by patronage mechanism to parties that are aligned when they're controlling the state. But with the fragmented power sharing due to different electoral outcomes, we now have a coalition parties which are continually negotiating how these grants are to be given, notwithstanding anything in the normative terms of the federal constitution. Because the federal has so much funding, they can make special grants to special states where they want to win or re-win their election. So we have, therefore, as lawyers, to navigate not just law and normative values, we have to look at economics, we have to look at the sociology of political partisanship, of coalition parties, having a dance around these issues. Indeed, as I share in various conversations, both within the conference and after in between, which sometimes we learn so much, I realized that the issues that is pervasive to Nepal and to Pakistan and to Malaysia have so much of commonalities. Despite the fact of we would like to think all elections are fought on economics. No discourtesy to economics. Law and economics are very, very powerful. But we also know that there is a rise of ethno-linguistic, ethno-religious sentiments, whether in Nepal, maybe the Hindu element, in Malaysia, the Islamic dimension, all right, all trying to overcome and be the glue to hold the nation together, or perhaps a bait for the unsuspecting electorate to vie for the vote outcomes. As I was looking at the article again of C.K. Lau, and because I teach literature, I like the way he puts it so well. Towards the end of his article, he talks about the fact that in Madhesh, having seen only stray cows, wandering bulls obstructing the roadway, the commotion of street gave an oddly uplifting feel. Chaos is the precursor of change and order. The apparent anarchy is perhaps a necessary correction for the transformation of the suppressed population in Madhesh. I wonder whether such an application can be made to my friends in Sabah, who is now struggling to find more grants for themselves, and Sarawak, and the poorer states in my nation, even as Professor Tasneem talked to me very provocatively also on the fact that part of the reason why there was a Bangladesh is because the central government of West Pakistan then neglected the issue of the use of language, all right? Not just about the economics, which is also very important, the grants to East Pakistan, then known as. There are what we call secessionist tendencies. Even in Malaysia, we also have that strain of, if you don't give us more, we might want to secede. Of course, they don't have army and they don't have the police. As I try to draw close to this reflection, and I read Professor Achyut Wagle, a very learned paper, I learned so much from it, and Professor Tasneem, I'm drawn to close with my strength, which is, because I teach literature at the moment, so you would pardon me, I would now like to end with two quotes. Can we put it up? First of all, okay, as a lawyer, I come across, we all are aware of this Justice Brandai great dissent. A single courageous state may, if its citizens choose, serve as a laboratory and try novel social and economic experiments without risk to the rest of the country. This is one of the great dissent in the case of New State ICOM and Lepman, where the majority struck down a state attempt at license and extracting rates from a license, saying that it is against the federal constitution of USA. But Justice Brandai's statement became a kind of litmus for many espousal and people who embrace federalism. Brandai's metaphor has been applied to federalism. Actually, as a acute commentator say, it is also his commitment to democratic socialism, something which Nepal is committed to. And then Brandai, and in exercising the high power of striking down power of state legislation, we must be ever on guard lest we erect our prejudices into legal principles. If we will be guided by the light of reason, we must let our minds be bold. I end with two other quotes. One of them is, as I come across a magazine drawn to my attention by my wife, in a magazine from the hotel. The next quote, please. It comes from one of your great poets, your great poet, Cindy Charan Shrestha. The poem is, next slide please. Of course, this is in English translation, not in Nepali. Unfortunately, I can't read Nepalese. Fly far above and breaking through the clouds, soaring high in the air, the snow-white noble bird, go preaching the message of peace. We will be one, and build the world in unity. What is the use of war? We will live in love. We are impatient for peace. He was incarcerated, like many of the great poets of my country too, in their struggle for peace. And this word peace in Nepalese, I'm sure, share the same word as the great Islamic word salam or shalom in Hebrew, which is where love and compassion and justice meets together. My last quote, and I sit down, is come from a novel written by Nepalese Manjushri Thapa, the tutor of history. I come across this morning, and I found it so moving that I like to end my discourse with this last quote from his opening chapter of this novel. He looks at Kathmandu and the place that he is living on, and he talks about the fact that the people needs to have this one fellowship of communication. And I think as we come towards the last day of this conference, as I listen in to so many learned presenters, and I listen in to the Chief Justice of Australia from Australia, and we know this session is funded by Asia Foundation. We, the post-colonial states, we are confident in our discourse. We are willing to interact with the best and the brightest from all streams of learning. And my learned friend, Dr. Walter there from Germany, we thank all these people who are together in that one fellowship as Manjushri Thapa ruminates over a town that he writes about, that this communication may long continue and realize the peace which the great poet Sindicharan Shrestha wrote about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Cole. I think his presentation was really full of a lot of emotions and respect for the people. And I wish whatever you have quoted can really become true, and that would be the guiding principle for each one of us. And communication is so important because it is through the communications, I think the human relationship is built. And if we are thinking about the world where each and everyone could live with dignity and peace, I think those are some of the quotes and values and guidelines, that could be really very, very, very helpful. So I don't want to talk much about it, but I would now like to open the floor. And if you have any questions, please raise the hand. And I would also seek for their help so that I will not miss out any hand. So would you really, because I could see many hands, and if you can really go around with the mic, yeah.
Namaste, Badri Manender from Helvetas, Nepal again. My question goes to Professor Achyut Wagle. It is about fiscal federalism, surely. Time and again, we have been hearing and reading about the criticism that local governments as well as provincial governments have been forced to compromise on their autonomy due to their over-reliance on federal fiscal transfer and revenue sharing. And such a situation has constrained them to freely exercise their constitutional mandate. So, what is your observation regarding the own source revenue of the subnational government? Because the Constitution has allocated many revenue authorities to subnational government as well. And these subnational government have a sort of reluctance or fear to exercise their revenue authorities. So, to what extent is there truth in this criticism? And do you have any observation on the use of revenue authorities of the subnational government? Thank you.
Thank you, because I could see some questions very much directed to Professor Wagle. So if you have any question, again, I will take 3 questions and I will request our presenter to respond to it, and then I will go for the second round. And I would just say sorry because that is the time that I could do it. So, can we have the question?
Yeah.
As well as, I could see the hand over there, and then you will be the third. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Alok. I'm from Vidhi. Just actually, there's a question also to Mr. Achyut Wagle, and I'd be grateful if Ms. Tasneem Kaur and Mr. Philip Ko could answer at a later point, but I'll just make the question now itself. Because what I sort of noticed was there is an idea that these are fiscal transfers are also for the purposes of balancing out inequality. But I didn't see any serious metric being used to address what is the inequality we're talking about, what is the level of economic development, are we looking at per capita income. I just sort of wanted to understand, is there a way that metric is being reflected somewhere in HDI or something like that? Because I will be speaking about it later today. The Indian Finance Commission uses a very specific metric called income distance. So it compares the relative income of the richest state and the poorest state and gives more money to the poorest state. I'm simplifying it, I'll talk about it in more detail. But I was just interested to know, across the 3 examples, Mr. Achyut Wagle can sort of talk about it in the context of Nepal, and then maybe Ms. Kausar and Mr. Ko about their respective countries. How is this income disparity or relative wealth difference accounted for in the recommendations of the Finance Commission? Thank you.
म प्रमोद पोखरेल हो, गाउँपालिका राष्ट्रिय महासङ्घबाट प्रतिनिधित्व गर्छु र मेरो प्रश्न खिमलाल देवकोटा सरलाई। यो वित्तीय संहिताको बारेमा मेरो सानो जिज्ञासा, जुन नेपालको संविधानको मर्म भावना अनुसार तपाईको चाहिँ जुन अधिकार तल्लो तहसम्म जो पछाडी पारिएका र परेका समुदाय र वर्गसम्म चाहिँ एक्सेस होस् भन्ने हिसाबले सङ्घीय मोडलमा संविधानको भावना र मर्म अनुसार जानु पर्थ्यो। त्यो नगएर वित्तीय संहिताको हिसाबले हेर्दाखेरि सङ्घीय सरकारले 70% खर्च गर्ने, प्रदेश सरकारले 15% खर्च गर्ने र गाउँ स्थानीय तहले 15%, र त्यो 15% पनि पुरै पैसा नपठाउने के यो हिसाबले तपाईको चाहिँ सङ्घीयता संस्थागत हुन सक्छ? मेरो प्रश्न खिमलाल देवकोटा सरलाई। र त्यो सँगै जुन सङ्घीय संरचनामा वित्तीय क्षेत्रको चाहिँ छ, यसले स्रोत परिचालनको हिसाबले गर्दाखेरि आज सङ्घीयता माथि थुप्रै प्रश्नहरू आएर बजारमा छ्यापछ्याप्ती आएका छन्। के यसैको यो स्रोत परिचालनमा केन्द्रीकृत तपाईको चाहिँ मानसिकताबाट माथि उठ्न नसक्दाखेरि आज सङ्घीयता विरोधी आवाजहरू सडकमा आएका त होइनन् भन्ने मेरो जिज्ञासा होस्। धन्यवाद। थ्याङ्क यू।
I think with the 3 questions, maybe, I will give the floor so that they can answer. And for the second round, definitely I see the hand over there, and I will take 3 questions. And I think that will be all. But I would request that if you have any questions to them, we really would value and respect the written questions, if you can give it to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting questions. Let me very briefly talk about the own source revenue raised by Badriji. It is established theory that the more the subnational units are able to mobilize the own source revenue, the more sustainable and functional would be the federalism. That is an established kind of general theory. But what went wrong is when we consider creating the federal units, both the provinces and the local units, the economic consideration was not there. Why the demarcation of certain province has to be like that, and why the demarcation of certain local units has to be like that, was not duly considered in terms of their economic viability. There were political consideration, there were regional consideration, probably in a fainted way, there was identity considerations, but one key principle was violated. That is the principle of tax point transfer. If you're making a new province, how many tax points you are transferring from federal to the provincial? If you talk in the horizontal lanes terms, from this potential province to another potential province. So it is problem in the constitutional design. Second, the own source revenue, we probably need to redefine the income sources and the transfer mechanism. It has just been 5 years. It is high time to review what worked and what didn't. On that own source revenue, I will just say that. There is another question related to the probably efficacy or the role of National Resource and Fiscal Commission. Partly Devkota ji addressed that, and there is a bit of detailed paragraph in my paper if that is in your hand. I have directly compared it with the Fiscal Commission of India. That is, the Fiscal Commission of India has got an authority in civil matters equal to that of a High Court. But in our case, it has only been made a recommendatory commission. It does not have the sort of mandatory power even to recommend the government. And one very important point, as raised by Devkota ji, I have written in several papers, that the authority of NNRSP has been diluted severely by particularly 3 acts. One, Intergovernment Fiscal Arrangement Act. Another, the Local Governments Operations Act. And another one is the very new, the Coordination Act. It's a very new act. And very interestingly, the Section 33 of Intergovernmental Fiscal Arrangement Act has made a provision of this Inter-Provincial Fiscal Council headed by the Finance Minister. That is an cannibalizing effect, I will tell you, to infringe into the constitutional authority of this Fiscal Commission. So this is where I'm not criticizing. We need to have a sort of open mind to review it. On an NNRFC written question, I just said that. There is another very difficult question, I would say, the threat to fiscal federalism. Yes. Those threats come from 3 quarters. I have already mentioned that. If we do not capacitate the subnational government, particularly the local government, who have got, Constitution has very generously given the authority. The situation is that they are not able to exercise the authority given to them, particularly in their own fiscal policy formulation, in utilizing the available resources. If we do not tell them what is budget, what is planning, how do we address to the demand for the public services, it is going to fail, and that capacity building requires. Second comes from the I have already said the federalism quacks. Everybody is very keen to spoil the broth, and we are creating a haze. What is right and what is not. So I am reading a very thick paper by one of the big multilateral donor agency of Nepal, an update of federalism. When I look at the list, all of the 13 experts employed were probably never trained in what is federalism, and most of them were consulted because they are former bureaucrats. If the former bureaucrats' knowledge is so important, why Nepal had to arrive there? Without any biases, I am telling you. So there is the federalism quacks in action everywhere. So that is the second threat to federalism. There is third threat. We are not ready to review on all 3 aspects: the legal, the institutional, and the operational, where we achieved something and where we failed to achieve. We should be very open for that review, and for next 2 years, we should spend some time to that direction. One very important question about the matrix. In one of my independent paper, I have proposed revision of all the formulas on and the weightage, the weightage used by the Fiscal Commission at present. One very ridiculous thing you will see in Fiscal Commission literacy even today is the internal loan to be borrowed by the local governments. It is in the site, you can download that paper, will be decided by the general macroeconomic condition of the paper. That is what the law and the constitution said. But it is automatically implied that the macroeconomic condition of that economic unit, it is, but what Fiscal Commission is doing is that it is evaluating the national macroeconomic situation with the national data and deciding whether the Chandannath municipality of Jumla should get internal loan, should have the authority to get internal loan or not. There are other several structural issues. I have a separate paper published on internal loan. You can probably download about 70-page long paper, why it should be and what are the process. I have compared Switzerland, Germany, Leanders, and then the India. So for now, I stop there. There is another why local government not able to mobilize their internal debt, because there is deliberate constricting factors right from the constitution to the provisions of the laws, including the Local Governments Operations Act and the Fiscal Government Transfer. I gave an example. The legal provision under Section 14 of the Intergovernmental Fiscal Arrangement Act is far more regressive than the Local Self-Government Act implemented in 1999 by the unitary government in terms of mobilizing loans. We have good examples. Municipalities have borrowed and they are paying back. But we are not allowing to leverage that kind of aspect for the advantage of the municipalities in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The time is always a pressure. Now I would like to give the mic to Professor Tasneem. I would also again request you to give
I have a question for Professor Tasneem and Professor Andrew. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Can I? Yeah, okay. Professor Tasneem, first of all, I mean, did the 18th Amendment, I'm Simone, by the way, did the 18th Amendment bring some tangible benefits to the people by empowering the provinces? There's the first question. Then you're going to have in less than 2 months the election. Among the many political issues going on, does federalism being an issue in the agenda of in the manifesto of the political parties? And for Professor Andrew, how do you assess the work of the National Unity Government led by Prime Minister Anwar, especially considering that Sabah and Sarawak, they are pushing quite a bit to leverage their power identities? And also, do you see the upcoming new Agong, the king, the Sultan of Johor, that is very vocal guy? How do you see this in the dynamics of the federation? Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions. I've got a couple here. One to the sir, your question about the matrix. That's my apologies. I was rushing through the presentation. On page 17 of the paper, there is a chart over there. What we have achieved under 7th Finance Award was the opening up of the formula to a multifactored one, where we have inducted poverty also as an indicator, and but for the determination, there are like sub-indicators for each one of them, and they're like detailed charts of the matrix upon which they are decided, and each has like its own. But yes, the concern is that the population still is getting 82%, which is again the rule of the majority in that sense, and others not getting that much. There's another question from this Miss Prasam Shah. I'm sorry if I've pronounced it wrong. The question is about the Article 163 and the amendments and what Nepal needs to work upon in context of fiscal federalism. I'm unable to answer that question. I am in no position to advise you on that. I can tell you only that after having like multiple bad experiences, we have decided to put few things in the constitution. So we have come via constitutional amendments, and at the moment there had been, not at the moment, 2 years ago, there had been some talks about Article 163 to be neutralized as well, because it gave president powers, and many a times in the military takeovers and all that, it's a military president that we were getting, so they had like a free hand upon that constitutional article. So there had been some talks about that. Besides that, there is a lot of discontent as to the horizontal distribution formula. So the way we have a divisible pool in the constitution, in a similar way, maybe some minimum formula could be introduced in the constitution as well, from where the parties could not then decline, right? So that's my take on it. And okay, then there are like some very important question. What 18th Amendment had done for the people. You see, 18th Amendment could not be like a magical wand. It had, at least in theory, the shortcomings that the 1973's constitution had. In theory, at least, it has devolved the powers. It has given a lot of all the residuary powers, except for a limited federal legislative list. All the residuary legislative powers are with the provinces now. Health is provincial matter. Education is a provincial matter, and law and order and police is the provincial matter now. So a lot of provincial powers are there where provinces can exercise to the benefit of their citizens, and because they will be like directly responsible to their electorates. In fiscal context, however, the trouble had been that provinces had been transferred a lot of powers, but they haven't been transferred as many resources for that matter. And of course, there is always an argument about infrastructure and capacity, and sometimes I feel that the argument goes into the circular way. Right, so you don't give them resources because they don't have capacity, and they don't have capacity because they don't have resources. You got to like start from somewhere. So resources question is hinged upon this capacity and infrastructure thing. And performance of the provinces, to be very honest, has not been very happy one as far as their fiscal performance is concerned, their disbursement on projects and all that, because government does for equalization, it not only does it do the direct transfers, it's also is doing like grants in aid and block grants, and sometimes of course conditional grants as well. And the governments, provincial level governments particularly, they hadn't been like very happy reports from the KP and Sindh government. And the next problem that we are having is that there are these governments, they are like not they're not up to the task, so they are like asking the federal government to share responsibilities, which is like a very troubling issue for the people who are like happy about 18th Amendment. They want provinces to like step up and take responsibility of whatever has been assigned to them. Then your next question is election and how the federalism will be an issue in election. Federalism as such is not an issue in Pakistan at the moment, right? For Pakistan, as because we are quoting literature, Professor Philip quoted so much literature, so we gotta like start with from somewhere. And as Hardy says, it's the best of the times, and Dickens said it's like the best of the times and it's the worst of the times. So we are dealing with a very novel situation, and in that political context, federalism is not an issue. Rather it is whatever the unifying sentiment across the country, it is very helpful for that feeling of federalism. So I will only say that much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I would take two more questions, And then I think if you, okay, because I could see one more. So 3 questions, and then that will be the end because I think I should give time to them. So, yeah, thank you.
Good morning. I am Balram Prasad Raut, Head Center Department of Law, Tribhuvan University. I have one questions to both that are Honorable Dr. Khimlal Devkota as well as Professor Wagle. That distribution of royalty on the basis of the natural resources. So there are 5 categories, and on the basis of 5 categories, there are the natural. So you see that on what basis this categorization has been made to distribute the royalty on the basis of the natural resources. You see that if you talk about the 5, only the forest which is found in the Madhya Pradesh, otherwise rest of the thing is lacking. And that second thing I again asked to Honorable Devkota as well as Professor Wagle that we are talking about the equitable distribution, and equitable distribution that so on what basis that equitable distribution has been classified? If you talk about we are talking about the state or the province is the burden from the financial point of view, but if you see the budgetary allocation, then 15% only goes to the state. So on what basis the theory is being made that the state is being burdened for the development of the state? So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Binod Kumar Bhattarai. I would just like to pick one point raised by Pramod Pokhrelji before. He was saying that the federalism has been questioned many times these days. So the feasibility of federalism itself, particularly from the point of view of provincial governments, functioning of provincial governments. I went through the paper, cursory look at what Professor Wagle has said, the fiscal discipline and transparency. Madam, just 5 or 6 months earlier, Supreme Court ordered the central government and the other provincial governments also not to distribute pork barrel fund, the constituency development fund. Now, the extent of constituency development fund has so gone up that 150 million rupees, 15 crore rupiya per constituency is going, 2 from provincial MPs and 1 from federal MPs. Each getting 5 crore rupees per year. Count it in your calculator for 5 years, perhaps my calculator will explode in that one. I don't know. Like that has to be addressed. And a lot of financial arrears being done. That's why, as Pramod has just mentioned, that the question mark on provincial governments, particularly not because of the local government. It's because of that one. So I would like to ask Professor Wagle, he's very, very prolific in writing all these things. I never miss his article in published. So can you suggest a formula, performance attached fiscal transfer? Can't it be done here? So yesterday only, the Chief Minister of Madhya was telling about a lot of things, the central government not addressing their problems and all this. So only one thing, in the name of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, he was mentioning yesterday, he was distributing a lot of bicycles to the school-going girls. Politically, that might be feasible, but financially, it is still under the area. It is not yet regularized. It is yet to be proved by the concerned authority. So how it can be addressed, Professor Wagle particularly? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Even if this is the international conference, I'd like to express my vision in Nepali language. Thank you very much. Yo, Professor Wagle present gareko paper.
Sir, would you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, मेरो नाम नारायण बाँसकोटा, म नीति फाउन्डेसनमा फाइनान्शियल एनालिस्टको रूपमा काम गर्छु। यो प्रोफेसर वाग्लेले प्रेजेन्ट गर्नुभएको पेपर र डाक्टर देवकोटाले राख्नुभएको प्रस्तुतिकरणसँग लिङ्क गरेर एउटा हाम्रो अहिलेको 2080-81 को बजेटले 302 अरब पुँजीगत खर्च गर्ने र 307 अरब चाहिँ वित्तीय खर्च गर्ने हाम्रो सरकारी वित्तको सिनारियोलाई मध्यनजर गर्दै एउटा सानो मैले यो कन्फरेन्सको सबमिसनमा पनि त्यसको एब्स्ट्राक्ट राखिएको छ। यो फोरमलाई त्यो हेर्न अनुरोध गर्छु। एउटा स्टडी मैले गरेको थिएँ, त्यसको कम्प्लिमेन्ट्रीको रूपमा मात्र यहाँ मैले प्रस्तुत गर्न खोजिराखेको। र यो मेरो फोकस कहाँ छ भन्दा, हामी अहिले सङ्घीय लोकतान्त्रिक गणतन्त्रमा छौँ, नागरिकलाई हामी सार्वभौम मान्छौँ। त्यसो भएको हुनाले गर्दा सरकार भनेको एजेन्ट अफ द सिटिजन्स मिन्स देयर इज फिडुसियरी रिलेसनसिप बिट्विन सिटिजन एन्ड गभर्मेन्ट। वी एग्री आई थिङ्क दिस फोरम। त्यसो भएको हुनाले गर्दा मेरो बढी फोकस यहाँ के हो भन्दाखेरि, जुन 1/3 हामीले फिस्कल ट्रान्सफरको रूपमा सबनेसनल गभर्मेन्ट्सहरूलाई दिइराखिएको छ, त्यसको बारेमा हामीले धेरै कुरा गरेका छौँ। तर कतै बाँकी 2/3 एकातिर 1/3 दिएको नाममा 2/3लाई हामी कसरी प्रयोग गरिराखेका छौँ, त्यो एस्पेक्टमा मैले त्यो स्टडी गरेको थिएँ। त्यो फाइन्डिङले के देखायो भन्दा 2068-69 देखि 78-79 सम्मको 10 वर्षको अवधिलाई लिएर हेरियो सङ्घीय सरकारबाट भएको खर्चमा हेर्दाखेरि यसको पनि अझै मैले यो सङ्घीय सरकारबाट गरिएको चालु खर्चको पनि मैले त्यति हेरिनँ, किनभने त्यो भनेको स्वाभाविक रूपमा सेन्ट्रल सेक्रेटरिएटहरू भनेको काठमाडौँ केन्द्रित हुने भएको हुनाले गर्दा त्यो स्वाभाविक रूपमा काठमाडौँमा बढी हुनसक्छ। त्यसैले त्यो स्टडी गरेर कन्क्लुजनमा जानु भनेको बायस हुन्छ भनेर मैले त्यसलाई राखेर क्यापिटल एक्सपेन्डिचर कहाँ खर्च भएछ त। र यो बिचमा हामीले 2074-75 मा सङ्घीयता पनि वैधानिक रूपमा निर्वाचन गरेर लागू गरेर 3 तहका सरकारहरू आइसके पछाडिको कट अफ पोइन्टलाई लिएर 2टा अवस्थाको मैले स्टडी गरेँ। त्यो गर्दा फेरि म एउटा अनुरोध गर्दैछु, यो मेरो कम्प्लिमेन्ट्री हो, क्वेसन होइन। त्यो गर्दाखेरि के देखियो भन्दा एउटा रमाइलो रिजल्ट के देखियो भने, नम्बर 1 सङ्घीयता आइसके पछाडि जुन हामीले वास्तवमा जति पनि राजनीतिक परिवर्तनहरू हुन्छन् त्यो भनेको त नागरिकहरूलाई सेवा सुविधा प्रदान गर्न नै होला। अरू त मलाई लाग्छ इज जस्ट फर रामकृष्ण ढकालको गीत जस्तै हुने, अरू सबभर भन्ने कुरा हुन् होइन। त्यसो भएको हुनाले गर्दाखेरि यसमा के देखिन्छ भन्दाखेरि नागरिकहरूलाई सेवा प्रवाह गर्नको लागि चाहे त्यो कर्णालीको नागरिक होस्, चाहे त्यो दार्चुलाको नागरिक होस्, चाहे त्यो काठमाडौँको नागरिक होस्, त्यो ताप्लेजुङको नागरिक होस्, उसले भर्खरै मात्रै हाम्रो सरकारले जुन पब्लिक डेटको रूपमा धेरै पैसा लिएर चाहिँ
Sir, can you be a little precise?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. गरिराखेको चाहिँ यसमा मैले छोट्याउँदा के पाइयो फाइन्डिङ्स भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ एब्जर्प्सन क्यापासिटीमा इम्प्रुभ भएको छैन। सङ्घीयता लागू भइसके पछाडि पनि क्यापिटल एक्सपेन्डिचरको एब्जर्प्सन क्यापासिटी राम्रो छैन। अर्को रमाइलो के छ भने बागमतीमा सङ्घीय सरकारको खर्च झन्डै 41 देखि 50% बागमती प्रदेशमा हुन्छ, जबकि कर्णाली प्रदेशमा 4 देखि 6% मात्रै हुन्छ। योभन्दा अनौठो अझै अर्को कुरा, बागमतीमा पनि काठमाडौँ जिल्लामा 27 देखि 38% खर्च हुन्छ, जसमा काठमाडौँ जिल्लाले 5वटा कोष तथा लेखा नियन्त्रक कार्यालय राखेर खर्च गर्छ, जबकि अघि मैले भर्खरै भने कर्णाली प्रदेशमा 4 देखि 6% मात्रै खर्च हुन्छ। र यो ललितपुर जिल्लाको र मा हुने खर्च र कर्णाली प्रदेशमा हुने पुँजीगत खर्च बराबर छ। यो 10 वर्षको डाटा हो अथवा 11 वर्षको डाटा। यो स्थितिमा हामी छौँ भने अब हामीले कतै फिस्कल ट्रान्सफरको नाममा एकातिर दिएर अर्कै ढङ्गले स्रोतको दुरुपयोग भएर नागरिकहरूमा इनजस्टिफिएबल distribution of resource त भइराखेको छैन? This is the great question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I saw one more hand somewhere, and if not, I think that would be great. Still, I would request if you have any comment or additional points, we would really value it, and we will just collect it. And so now I would request Honorable Dr. Khimlal Devkota ji to respond whatever the queries and comments.
मैले सिधै सिधै जान्छु है, म अलिकति नेपाली धेरै खालका सबभन्दा नारायणजीको प्रश्नबाट म आउँछु। सबभन्दा पहिला कुरा चाहिँ के हो भने द अमेरिकन फेडरलिजम इज अबाउट 250 years, स्विस फेडरलिजम इज अबाउट 175 years, जर्मन फेडरलिजम इज वर्किङ 75 years. You cannot compare the Nepalese federalisms with the German federalism, with Swiss federalism, or American federalism. We have the less than 10 years of experiences. So we are just started for walking, पहिलो कुरा यो बुझ्नुपर्ने छ है हामीले सबभन्दा महत्त्वपूर्ण कुराहरू। त्यसकारण प्रदेशहरू भर्खरै खुट्टा टेक्दैछन् यो कुरा। दोस्रो कुरा यहाँ हाम्रो मिनरल रिजाल मान्यज्यू पनि हुनुहुन्छ। हाम्रो संहिता वित्तीय संहिताको 4 pillars. There are 4 pillars of fiscal federalisms. The first pillar is the functions. This is the expenditure assignment. Second pillar is the revenue assignment. Revenue भित्र त्यो भित्र ट्याक्सको कुरा पनि आउँछ। र थर्ड पिलर इज द फिस्कल ट्रान्सफर्स, फोर्थ पिलर इज द लोन, दिस इज द इन्टरनल लोन। द फर्स्ट पिलरमा समस्या छ, फङ्सन्समा देयर इज स्टिल ओभरल्यापिङ इन द फङ्सन्स, duplications in the functions. The most important we have to do is the revisiting of the unbundling, functional analysis. That is what we have recommended of the National Assembly in the first recommendations, that there should be clear of the unbundling report. The who will do what should be the clear. This is the first. यो कुरा पहिलो क्लियर हुनुपर्छ। पहिलो कुराहरू रेभिन्यू एसाइनमेन्टको कुरा गर्दाखेरि अघि हामी यहाँ गाउँपालिका राष्ट्रिय महासङ्घले पनि कुरा गर्नुभयो। हाम्रो फेडरलिजमको फिस्कल ट्रान्सफर चाहिँ हाम्रो चाहिँ सब नेसनल गभर्मेन्टको दे हेभ द कन्स्टिट्युसनल राइट्स। मैले अघि भने संविधानको मैले 60 को 1, 2, 3, 4, 250, 251 को कोड पनि गरेँ। सब नेसनल गभर्मेन्टको फिस्कल ट्रान्सफर इज द कन्स्टिट्युसनल राइट, बिकज function is decentralized, revenue is centralized. So this fiscal gap should be fulfilled from the fiscal transfers. So this is the constitutional right. यो कुरा चाहिँ हाम्रो नेताहरूले, हाम्रा मन्त्रीहरूले, हाम्रा सांसदहरूले पनि बुझेनन्। यो हामीले बुझ्नुपर्ने कुरा यो हो। नारायणजीले भने जस्तै के भएको छ भने हामीले we have been distributing fiscal transfers 1/3 of the total budget. 1/3 of the total budget. However, there are many doors, many doors, channels, windows. They have been distributing this haphazardly of the resources. So this should be controlled. So my recommendations were that whatever this is the vertical total pool or whatever this is the horizontal total pool should be decided by the Fiscal Commission. मैले यो कुरा पनि भनेको छु। र अर्को अघि हाम्रो के अरे भट्टाई सरले भन्नुभयो, तपाईँले भने जस्तै मैले जति यहाँ फ्लोरबाट क्वेसन आएछन्, वाट एभर द क्वेसन्स यु हेभ फ्लोर इज कमिङ फ्रम द फ्लोर, अल क्वेसन्स you have been questions to us, but being a member of parliament, I have been questioning these questions in the parliament. मैले यो निर्वाचन क्षेत्र पूर्वाधार विकासको कार्यक्रमको बजेट भाषण सुन्ने बित्तिकै मैले बजेट भाषण सुनेर भनिसकेको। नेपालको संहिता, वित्तीय संहिता यदि कमजोर कसैबाट भएको छ भने यो सरकारबाटै भएको छ। र यहाँ मैले एकदमै अप्ठ्यारो साथ भन्नुपर्छ, यसमा विशेष गरी सांसदहरू, प्रतिनिधि सभाका सांसदहरू नेपालको संहितालाई, वित्तीय संहितालाई कमजोर पार्ने भनेको सांसदहरू हो। हेर्नुहोस्, किनभने झोला लिएर, कागजको टुक्रा लिएर, लेटर प्याड लिएर जब मन्त्रालय योजना चाहियो, बजेट चाहियो भनेर मन्त्रालय धाइसकेपछि अनि कमजोर हुँदैन सांसदहरू। म पनि सांसद हो, तपाईँले मलाई पनि उठाउन सक्नुहुन्छ। सांसदहरू नेपालको संहिता, वित्तीय संहितालाई कमजोर पार्ने भनेको नेताहरू त हुँदै हो। मैले पार्लियामेन्टमा बोलेको छु, you have been distributing lot of money, resources to your constituencies. मैले भनेको छु, even prime minister, whether this is the prime minister or finance minister, whatever, whether this is the infrastructure minister or whatever, this is the urban development minister, तिनीहरूको मन्त्रालयको उनीहरूको निर्वाचन क्षेत्रमा मात्रै रिसोर्स गएको छ। अनि हामी यो बस नगर्ने, अनि अर्को रिसोर्सको कुरा डिस्ट्रिब्युसन। त्यसकारण यहाँ हेर्नुहोस् त, पार्लियामेन्टले बजेट एप्रुभ गरेको छ, दुनियाँको कुनै पनि पार्लियामेन्ट्री सिस्टममा हुँदैन। संसदले the budget is approved by the parliament, संसदले बजेट एप्रुभ गरेको छ, अनि सरकारले क्याबिनेटबाट के गर्छ, त्यसलाई खोसेर चाहिँ पोहोर साल चाहिँ 6 र बजेट चाहिँ तल स्थानीय र प्रदेशलाई पठाएको 6 र बजेटको योजनाहरू अनि क्याबिनेटले, संसदले पास गरेको छ अनि क्याबिनेटले पास गरेर फिर्ता लिएर आउँछ। यो दुनियाँमा कहीँ हुन्छ? संसदले पास गरेको बजेट चाहिँ फेरि क्याबिनेटले खोसेर लान मिल्छ। त्यसकारण यो सबै मैले यो धेरैचोटि भनेको पनि छु, आज अलि मैले बाध्य भएर भन्नु पनि पर्यो। तर यो सबै कुराहरू मैले फाइनली इन माई फाइनल कन्क्लुजन, फाइनल माई रिकमेन्डेसन्स वाज द्याट
should strictly follow the recommendations of the National Commission's Federalism Implementation Monetary Parliamentary Committee recommendations. There are more about 100 recommendations, including fiscal transfers, including administrative federalizations. हेर्नुहोस् त हाम्रो संहिता अहिलेसम्म निजामती कानुन ल्याएको छैन. हामीले 7 वर्षमा संविधान जारी गर्यौं, अहिलेसम्म निजामती कानुन किन लिएर आएको? अहिलेसम्म प्रदेशलाई प्रहरी समायोजन किन नगरेको? यो सबै कुराहरू, यो फिस्कल फेडरलिजमलाई तपाईले डु नट टक अबाउट ओन्ली इन द एब्सोल्युट टर्म, यो एब्सोल्युट टर्मबाट मात्रै हेर्ने हैन, यसका रिलेटिभ कुराहरू पनि हामीले जोड्नुपर्ने हुन्छ. त्यसकारण हाम्रो संहिता यदि वित्तीय कोहीबाट कमजोर छ भने नेताहरूबाट कमजोर छ, मन्त्रीहरूबाट कमजोर छ, हामी म सांसद हो, यसको जवाफदेहिता यसको म पनि आउला, हामी सांसदबाट कमजोर छ. त्यसकारण हामी सबैले गर्नुपर्छ. तर मैले पटक भन्ने गरेको छु, जबसम्म लोकल गभर्नमेन्टहरू स्ट्रङ हुँदैन, जबसम्म उनीहरूले सङ्घीय सरकारको ताबेदारी गर्छ, चाहे प्रदेश सरकारले सङ्घीय सरकारको ताबेदारी गर्छ, यो संहिता बलियो हुँदैन. त्यस कारण स्ट्रङ भोइस गर्ने एउटा कमन फोरम चाहिँ चाहिन्छ. हेर्नुहोस् है, मैले यो अरू देशको अनुभवबाट पनि भनेको हुँ. र अब फाइनली मैले अनवर शाहको धेरै ठाउँमा भनेको पनि छु. वाट इज रिटेन इन हिज बुक इन द अनवर शाह बाई इन द फिस्कल फेडरलिजम टेक्स्ट बुक, गिभिङ रिसोर्सेस, बिकज वी आर डिस्कसिङ द रिसोर्स डिस्ट्रिब्युसन्स थीम. Giving resources and power to the subnational government is like giving car keys and whiskey to the teenagers. This is the centralist mindset prevail in the fiscal federalism and the fiscal decentralization. यो समस्या संसारभरि पनि छ. हेर्नुहोस्, तल रिसोर्स दिनलाई, पावर दिन कोही पनि चाहदैन. त्यसकारण सङ्घर्ष गर्नै पर्छ. हेर्नुहोस्, तर यति भन्दै पनि हाम्रो संहितामा धेरै उपलब्धि भएको छ. धेरै उपलब्धि अरू अमेरिकन फेडरलिजम, इन्डियन फेडरलिजमको तुलना गर्दाखेरि धेरै एचिभमेन्ट पनि भएको छ. हामी कहिले नेगेटिभ कुरा पनि नगरौँ. अघि त्यो इन्कम डिस्टेन्सको कुरा गर्नुभयो, इन्डियाको फिस्कल कमिसनको कुरा गर्नुभयो. अरू देशको फिस्कल ट्रान्सफरभन्दा हाम्रो देशको फिस्कल ट्रान्सफर एकदम राम्रो छ. मैले च्यालेन्ज साथ भन्छु, किनभने from this hand, I have allocated, I have distributed fiscal transfers about 10 years, and I have designed index formula giving weighted to the expenditure need. Expenditure needs whatever this is poverty or whatever this is the revenue index. This kind of aru desko fiscal transfer system banda Nepal's fiscal transfer is the number one. I will say here in this forum because of my experiences, because I did my PhD in the same theme, and I also the practical experiences working in this. So because of this, by experiences across the globe, and I will say finally, fiscal federalism, fiscal decentralization in Nepal is in between. But comparing to most of the federal countries, we are in far better. Thank you very much.
Yes, I would definitely.
Only a short comment. As I listen in, I see the passion and the poignancy of the contestation. I won't talk about Malaysia because I can privately do that. Yesterday when Mr. Daman, one of your great people who struggled for the new constitution, said federalism is not working, but coming from him, I felt the power of his words. And as I listened this morning to the really, really rich discussion, I am encouraged that you all are debating this in such granular way. I would like to introduce a concept, being someone in love with ideas, that's borrowed from a German tradition. Professor Jürgen Habermas talked about communicative rationality. As we discuss this, shall we communicate with rational power in our discourse, and yet with the passion that you have all shown? This is something that I think I will take home with me from this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think it has been really a wonderful sessions we have. Because of the time, I think I will have to stop, and I have been given the reminder also. I think our panelists have really said it very clearly that federalism is not the issue. And federalism, whether it is identity-based or inclusive federalism, is all about, fiscal development, or, it's all about economic empowerment of the people. And it's also about reducing disparities and, and promoting more and more equitable distribution of public resources, and raising the capacity of all the level of the people also. I think this is what I got it also. And also that, if the delivery mechanism of the government does not match with the receiving capacity of the people, I think then there is a gap. I think this is exactly what we are really trying to find out. And at the end of the session, I just would like to say that, federalism is not the problem. And what we are discussing today is we are all very much convinced and we really believe in federalism, but definitely, just like in Nepal, it's very new, and Honorable Devkota ji has rightly said, we should have patience also, because we hear a lot of kind of rumor, complaint and whispering that, federalism will not work because it is very expensive. But if we go to the villages in Nepal, the local government, if you look at the local government and the kind of work they have done, it is really amazing. And this is at the very beginning only. I think for Nepal is only the big task is how to activate and how to really empower the provincial level also. I think if we can do that, and if there is a very equal distribution of resources and people having access to all the resources, I think things would be really better. So with this, I feel very honored to have such an eminent speakers and commentators and such a wonderful participants with all the wisdoms that has been shared. With this, I would like to say thank you to the organizer, and I would like to say that, this session will be adjourned here, and thank you so much once again.